What's going on YouTube? Today I'm going to be showing you how to tie up your own super strong, fish safe, elasticated feeder stems. Okay folks, so before I go into some of the components that you'll need to tie up your own elasticated feeder stems at home, I want to discuss the reasons why an angler might want to use an elasticated stem. There's a couple of reasons. One of the main reasons is it takes tension off your hook length. What I mean by that is, and I'm just going to use my fish safe elasticated feeder stem here as an example, when a fish bolts off with the hook bait, it can actually put a lot of strain on that hook length. And sometimes if you're fishing very light hook lengths or you're not fishing strong enough, that can cause a breakage of the hook length. And what an elasticated stem does is it takes some of the pressure off that hook length, allowing you potentially to deal with bigger fish on lighter tackle. The other reason is for its hooking ability. So for example, what normally sets the hook when you're feeder fishing is one, the weight of the feeder, and two, the resistance against the tip of your feeder rod. But in an elasticated feeder stem, you're getting the weight of the feeder, but not only that, you're getting the elastic pulling back on the hook length and really setting the hook. So they're the couple of reasons that you might want to fish an elasticated feeder stem. What you could also use it for is if you wanted to fish a slack method feeder line. So if you're fishing in the margin and you wanted a slack line going to your feeder so that the fish can't detect the line, that's where these are good, because as I've said to you before, when a fish catches itself on the hook, that elastic's really going to set that hook home, and you're not having to use the resistance of your tip against the feeder to set the hook home. So they're the main reasons. It just gives you a slightly stronger setup, and it's just another string to your bow in terms of uses for the method feeder. Now, how often do I use elasticated stems? It's quite rarely these days, but if I'm going to use them, I'll use my own safe versions. Now, I've not really seen anybody else do this on YouTube. I've not found any videos of anybody else that makes their own really safe elasticated stems. Obviously, I've seen the Preston videos where they show you how to replace their elasticated stems. Now, this is a Preston feeder, and as you can see, this is their elasticated stem. Now, this isn't safe for the fish at all, because if you get a mainline breakage, like that there, the fish is left towing about this method feeder, and that is pretty much a death rig for a fish. So we don't want to use Preston elasticated stems like that. The fish just ends up towing the weight of the feeder around, and if they can't throw the hook, it's pretty much a death sentence for a fish. Now, other elasticated stems on the market is the Guru X Safe. Now, these are a brilliant stem, but what I've found is they're just not quite strong enough. So the reason that I make my own is they're super strong. You can adjust the strength of the elastic depending on the type of fish that you're targeting, but these are okay in most scenarios, but when you're targeting fish above 15 pound, they don't really have the right strength capabilities, in my opinion. Now, I know a lot of you out there will use Guru Elasticated X Safe stems, and you know, if you like them, you like them, that's no problem. But the way I'm going to show you is going to be super strong and super safe for the fish as well. So these are your X Safe stems. And as you can see, they've got a little quick change swivel there, and I'll show you this in more detail. But what happens is the stems are an even thickness all the way down, and they've just got a little hook here that your main line goes through, and that's obviously covered by this tail sleeve. And what happens if you get a main line breakage, that just pulls through. Now, mine work in a very similar method to that. The ones that I adapt are usually Preston, normal Preston stems, or my method feeders that are available on my website at www.westysangling.co.uk. And also I supply some of the components that you'll need in today's video. Not all of them, but some of them, if you wanted to have a nosy at my site. Little shameless plug there. So hopefully you find this video helpful. In a step-by-step process, I'm going to talk you through my way of tying these up. But before we get into that, let's have a closer look at some of the components that you're going to need. Okay, so this is the equipment and components that you're going to need to tie these up yourself at home. This is everything that every angler should have around the house. There shouldn't be anything unusual here. And it might look a little bit complicated at the minute, but I'm going to show you that it's really not complicated to make these. The only thing complicated, and that's taken me a lot of trial and error, is finding the correct elastics. So these are the elastics that I use. So these are a Daiwa hybrid elastic. Now, the reason that I use these is they're a solid elastic. You don't want to use a hollow elastic for this. You want it to be super strong. So the number rating there is corresponding to the thickness of the elastic. Now, I wouldn't go any thicker than this. You want something that will fit through a size 11 swivel. Okay, so that's really important. Size 11 swivels. They're about as small a swivel as I would go, unless you was targeting smaller fish. What you also want is one of these quick change components. I call them egg swivels, but I don't know if that's the real name or not. But as you can see, they're a little egg shape, and they have a quick change part where, I'm not sure whether you'll be able to pick it up on this camera or not, you'll be able to put your hook lengths, okay? So there's a couple of different types of them. Both types are on my website if you wanted to look at them or pick some up off eBay or whatever. All these components are readily available on eBay, so you'll be able to find them. So size 11 ring swivels, little egg swivel, and what happens is the egg swivel will pull back into the front of the feeder there, if you can see that. And that's the part that you're going to attach your elastic to, and then you've got your size 11 swivel on the back of the feeder there. Now, the reason that you can't use anything bigger than a size 11 swivel is you're going to want this to pull through the feeder. So watch this. I'm going to pull this hook length, and it should pull through fairly easy because you want the fish to be able to pull that out in the event of a mainline breakage. That's what makes this rig safe. Okay, and you do have to adapt these stems slightly. These Preston stems, we're going to adapt them, and that's what you're going to need the lighter for. And to really make them perfect, I recommend using a hacksaw as well. You don't have to use a bloody big hacksaw like this one. You can use a small one. The main reason for adapting these stems is the Preston stems. Let me show you one that hasn't been altered. The Preston stems, or the stems of most method feeders, are actually tapered. So they start off small here, and then they actually open up towards the end of the feeder. So if you can imagine, that goes in the top of your feeder there, and you've got the bigger end there all the way up to the narrow end. So you want to either melt this and stretch it out so that the size 11 swivel will actually fit through easily. As you can see, it goes in the bottom okay. It'll just fall straight through the bottom, but it won't come through this top part, and you want it to come through, as I've said. You want the fish to be able to pull that all the way out the feeder with relative ease, okay? You want a little bit of resistance there, but you want it to pull out if need be. Okay, so let's thread this one that I've already pre-tied up back onto the feeder itself, and you can see how I get these stems in. So let's put that in. As you can see, that's adapted. It still works fine. And then my little elasticated stem that I've pre-made there, you want a little rig hooker tool, little baiting needle with a hook on the end. And because these stems are actually slightly transparent, it makes it really easy to just pull these back through again in case you accidentally pull it all the way through. Okay, now this one's overstretched after a little bit of use. So what you ideally want is you want to be able to pull your little egg swivel, we're going to call it an egg swivel, into the front there. And you want your size 11 ring swivel just on the end of the stem there. You don't want this overhang here. And obviously you can imagine you tie your line onto the end of there, and there you go. In the event of a mainline breakage, that just pulls out the feeder. So this hybrid elastic is rated for fish up to 20 pounds. It's really, really strong. Take it from me, you ain't going to break this stuff. It is very, very, very strong. The only time you break it is if it was rubbing up against a sharp snag. Elastic isn't good with abrasion. So if you're against a sharp snag, it's probably going to cut that feeder elastic. But other than that, ultra strong. Okay, folks, so let's adapt one of these feeder stems. So the main aim for this, like I said to you, is widening this end bit here. So first thing I'm going to do is cut off the narrow part without cutting my fingers off. Kids, don't try this at home, or do it with adult supervision at least. Really soft, this plastic, so hacksaw cuts through it like a knife through butter. So we're just cutting the very end off so it's wider. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take our screwdriver. Now the size of screwdriver that you want to use needs to be about the thickness of the rings on the size 11 swivel. Okay? Because obviously you want this to be able to pass through. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to gently heat this stem up. Then I'm going to put this screwdriver in. And as you can see, that's going all the way down there. You might have to take a couple of passes at this. Don't melt it too much. I hope I'm getting all this on the camera. So gently heat it. Pass this through. Give it a wobble. Widen that stem up a bit. And then you want to let that cool. Another good reason for actually heating it up after this is it actually melts some of the sharp edges from obviously the hacksaw. The next part, while that's cooling off, we're going to tie our elastic. So we're going to get some of this Daiwa hybrid elastic. Now elastic can be quite difficult to work with, so make sure you cut yourself a decent amount off. So I would say probably about that much. It's probably overkill, but for this video, get yourself some nice sharp scissors there. And we're just going to tie this on. Now this is really important. The knot that you need to use is actually a uni knot. So as you can see, this black hybrid elastic just about fits through that. And then we're going to start tying our uni knot. So we're going to give ourselves enough of a tag end there to work with. And a uni knot, so you fold the two halves against each other. It's going to be quite difficult for you to see this on the camera, but if you're not sure on how to tie a uni knot, practice on some line first. Okay, so I'm going to trap the elastic behind those two folded halves of line, and then I'm going to bring it back round over both of those pieces of elastic. Yeah, and again. Now be careful, because obviously elastic's springy, and you only need 2 turns here. That's really important. Don't go overkill. Just fold it round twice. And like I said, it can be tricky. And then grab that tag end, and then you need to wet this still. So wet that, and then you want to ease that knot down against the swivel. Pull the tag end, ease it down. Pull the tag end, ease it down. You can see the knot goes really small. You don't want the knot to be bigger than the swivel eyes. So pull down, keep easing it down. And this is bloody strong, let me tell you. So you can trim it really close to that knot. And there you go. That's the first part of this elasticated stem tied. So you only need 2 turns on that, and that'll hold, I promise you, because elastic is actually really good for knotting, so you don't want to go overboard. If you want to do 3 turns, you can try it, but to be honest with you, I've never had one of these knots fail on 2 turns, so I would just stick to the 2 turns if you're trying this at home. What you want to do next is measure the elastic against the stem. So measure it relaxed, don't pull on the elastic at all. So let's have a see there. So I want to pinch the line just before the feeder ends. And then we're going to take our little egg swivel. And like I said, there's 2 different types. You can use that type, which is longer and stronger, or you can use these little egg swivels. These little ones are fine, they're strong enough. So you want to put that quick change egg there just where I've pinched, and then you can do two things. You can tie a figure of 8 loop knot in that, or you can do the uni knot again. The uni knot I think is stronger, so we'll trap it and then go back through. Like I said, it's much easier, folks, if you leave yourself enough elastic to work with here. It's a lot easier. So we're going to pull it tight and cinch it down there, pulling on both ends gradually. So when you've cinched that knot down, you want to trim this as close to that little egg swivel as you can. And that's the elasticated part of the stem done. So I hope you'd agree, that's really simple. It takes a little bit of practice to get it perfect, but once you've tied a few up, it's really easy. Then you want to put your swivel in, and you just want to hook your baiting needle through the eye of that swivel and just pull it into the stem. And that's what you want there. You want the egg part of it to pull into the bottom of the feeder, like that. And then obviously you put your hook length on there, and then you want your swivel hanging out of this side. You don't have to have your swivel tight into the end there. It can be hanging out like that. That's just going to give you a little bit more elasticated properties. And then there we go, folks. Obviously you put that on your main line, tie your main line on, and that's it. Rig's good to go. And always test it to make sure it pulls out easy enough. So let's try it. So that pulls out really easy. Fish safe, super strong, absolutely super strong, folks. I'm trying as hard as I can and I can't break that there. That is super strong, that elastic. And again, Daiwa hybrid elastic. But there you go, folks. Easy as that. I hope you'll give it a bash at home. Try a couple of different types of quick change components, but I find these the best. And like I said, if you're not sure what size to use, just check out my website. I've got the sizes on there. And I find that the smaller ones that have the wider ends work better. Well, there you go, folks, the finished article. I just want to say I hope this tutorial was easy enough to follow along with at home, and you'll have a bash at making your own super safe, extra strong elasticated feeder stems at home. If the video was helpful and you picked up a couple of things from it, obviously you can try out your own different ways of tying these. That's just the way that I do it. So have a play about with it. That's part of the fun in fishing, experimenting. But if you did find it helpful, please hit that subscribe button, stick a like on the video. And if you have any questions about anything I've done, any of the components that I've used or anything in today's video, please drop a comment in the comment section. I'll put links to some of the components in the description, make it really easy for you. Okay, folks, thanks for watching this Westies Angling video. I'll see you next time.